Welcome to Playfully Orange, our conversation on Thursdays about arts and culture here in Central Florida. My guest today is Jacoub Reyes. Welcome, Jacoub.
Hi, thank you for having me, Terry.
You bet. So, with a name like Jacoub Reyes, I mean, you got to be an artist, right?
Yeah, I would say.
Where does what heritage or where does that come from?
Well, I'm of a mixed race background. So my mom is Puerto Rican and Cuban, and my dad is Pakistani. So when you kind of merge, these kind of ancient cultures together, and you take a name like Jacob and Yakub, you get my name. So a lot of people pronounce it Jakub, Jake. I accept all of them. So
Well, um, and you grew up in the New Jersey area?
yep, yeah, and the tri-state area, mainly New Brunswick and Perth Amboy. So
Did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
well, I've always been curious about art and science and humanities and how that all connects together. So it was kind of a natural thing that happened, um, that kind of culminated with all these things that I was researching, even from an early age. And now I have the opportunity to dive more into my culture or cultures and kind of what it means to be a mixed race person in America. So that only continues to pique my interest because we're always learning more about different histories and stuff like that. So
How has that been influencing your work lately?
it's actually been really. I like to describe my work kind of like a stew or a soup, and the more that I've been learning and meeting people through different community initiatives and through going to more museums and reading more books, it's kind of getting richer. It's kind of like those pots of stew that have been around for years, and they just continue to like add water to the broth, and so that's something that I'm really enjoying. So the images are getting a little bit more complex. The compositions are starting to change. I'm starting to add more color and researching natural pigments and how I can integrate all that stuff into my woodblock practice.
Well, and you started out in engineering, right?
Yep. So I went to a magnet school, and I was actually, creating games, and and looking at how games affect, the psychology of children and young adults, and then that kind of merged into engineering, where I took my first UCF class when I was like in 10th grade. So it was a clear track into engineering, and I started to pursue that, and I actually found out that I didn't really want to pursue that. So I quickly changed to art and found out that printmaking was just so it satisfied that complex, process based procedural type of art making, and that's kind of what hooked me from there.
What brought you to Central Florida?
I actually moved with my mom when I was quite young, so I guess you can call myself, you can call me a Florida native because I've been here definitely over 20 years. So,
In Central Florida?
yep, yep, right, right. I mean, UCF was still pretty small, and there were still a couple of like, dirt roads around Orlando. So it's been a while.
And as when you were young, did you go to any of the museums or what was your exposure to the arts?
Well, actually, so my mom's has been a teacher like my whole life, basically. So over 30 years, and she wanted a kind of side job. So she actually applied and got a position as an art instructor through the city of Orlando. So I just tagged along because there wasn't much to do in the summer. And so I was able to volunteer and go to these different community centers where she would, teach art class. So I was in the back, kind of, prepping things for the students class, cutting and gluing and stuff like that. So I would basically be her little helper. And that's how I really got integrated with the arts and some of my best friends.
So education is kind of in your bones as well, and I think you're making a living as a teacher now too.
Definitely. Yep. Right now I do, various community initiatives, and I teach woodblock printmaking classes along with, drawing and printing fundamentals. And I also visit different universities as a visiting artist and lecturer because a lot of my work is large scale, which is kind of uncommon in the printmaking world, and it's gaining traction, which is nice because I love to see more big prints. But yep, that's basically what I do. Just teach
What
at museums, libraries, universities.
what does that mean, large scale? Like how large? Like, and what does that look like?
So, well, it looks really big, but my blocks are usually tend to range around 8 feet, and now I'm definitely expanding now that I have a larger space to work. So some of the upcoming ones are going to be around 20 feet. So,
Is
and
this like using a steamroller for the press?
I wish it's definitely more hands-on. So what I do is I just kind of put some knee pads on and a little gardening pad, and I just get to work. So after I ink it up by hand, I usually print on cloth, and I put that elbow grease to the block, and that's usually how I make my impressions, just right on the floor.
So you're purchasing very large pieces of material.
Yep, yep. Very large fabrics. They're usually like 108 inches wide, and sometimes I have to stitch them together just to create like the whole image. So,
And then what do you do with them?
so what's interesting is that since this is all process based, my work actually stems even before the drawing pad. So what I do is I write a list of kind of like themes or topics that I want to touch on. And then I go out into the wild, into the real world, and actually find wood, that people are getting rid of from construction sites. And that's my effort to become, more sustainable in my practice. And from there, that kind of determines the image. And I carve on that. And that's what I use to make these prints. But after I make the prints, I love to hang the actual carvings next to the actual prints, so that because printmaking is still a bit unknown to the general public, which is why it's so important for me to kind of like spread the word and make curriculum surrounding that. Because you can see the reversal of the image when it hangs next to each other, and it creates it's just a very interactive feeling when I exhibit these pieces. People from it's I try to expand my accessibility, so people that aren't able to see are able to touch. So they're able to touch the ridges of the woodcut and stuff like that. So always expanding accessibility is important to me.
A 20-foot wood block would be kind of heavy to hang.
Right, right. Yep. But well, it really depends because sometimes I find wood that is, thinner than your laptop screen or something. So, and sometimes that, poses an issue when I'm carving because it's so thin. But all these different images are on different substrates. So it really depends.
Cool. Well, what in Central Florida would you say is a main inspiration for you?
Oh, I mean, that's such a layered question because there's so many things to do and so many people to meet, really. So I just I love Central Florida because there's pockets, I guess we can call them. Like I can go to Mills and enjoy like an amazing, authentic, Asian inspired meal, or I can go to, just right down the road from there is it kind of like all changes, kind of like Museum Alley, I like to call it. And then I can go into Winter Park, and it's all just basically on the same strip. So I love finding those little areas, especially like Mead Gardens, where I can just kind of like get away from the hustle and bustle and just like, take in that, outside air, and maybe sketch a couple flowers. That usually gets me out of my element, along with gardening, which is something that I love to do. So
Great. Well, it's been great talking to you, and I look forward to seeing the next huge print that you're making. Thanks for being on the show today, and thanks for being a contributor to our community here in Central Florida.
of
Thank
course,
you all for watching.
thank you.
All right, bye.